Hello students, Mr. Eric here, and we're going to lay out a lesson where you're going to take what you've started to learn about isometric drawings, and now we're going to try to challenge ourselves a little bit more by drawing an actual building of some sort. Now, when I say we're going to draw an actual building, I don't mean that you have to draw it perfectly. But what I want you to try to do is take inspiration from an existing building and then see if you can't translate that into a drawing on isometric paper. So I understand that you're not going to be able to do it perfectly. It's probably not going to be as detailed as the original picture and that sort of thing. But I want you to, get some, at least attempt to recreate the building isometrically. And so you're going to use the isometric paper to create the main points of the building, but then you might have to kind of freehand a couple of things to make it look right, just because the nature of isometric paper is, especially the size we're using, is just it's too large for it to work to get all the little details. So you kind of have to use your imagination and make it work. So what I would recommend you do to find whatever building you're interested in drawing is just Google architecture. And that's going to bring up a huge varying range of buildings that you can pick from. So I just kind of scrolled through these and look at, what do you think piques your interest and what do you think would work well on isometric paper? So for instance, I came across this one right away and I thought, oh, look, it's very blocky, very chunky. That one would work well for isometric paper. This one right here even kind of looks like isometric paper, so that one would probably work well for isometric paper. Whereas, like, if you look at this thing, it's all curves, and if you've tried to do curves at all with isometric paper, you've come to realize that no, that doesn't work super well. This one, it's not a great angle of it, but that one would work well for isometric paper. Something even like this would probably work okay, and then you just have to kind of round your edges after you've had your rectangle made. Check this one out. It's a little picture, but that one would be cool for isometric paper, I think. So again, you just want to pick something like this house right here. That'd be good for isometric paper, very blocky. So you're looking for something that's probably more of a modern design. But then there's interesting things like this that is basically a rectangle with some cool shapes on it. So maybe that's something you can try. Oh, here's one. This one would be very good for isometric paper. So I hope you kind of get what I'm saying here is pick something like this that's angular, has lots of squares and rectangles, as opposed to picking something that's like this, like wacky, crazy, curvy. All right, because that's just it's gonna be very difficult for you. Okay, so I've decided I'm gonna go ahead and pick this one, and I'm just gonna have this up on my computer screen as I'm drawing. So what I'll do now is I'm gonna switch over and I'm gonna let you see what I'm drawing. I'm gonna kind of walk you through what I'm drawing and how. So I've got this sped up by about 4 times just because it took me maybe 15 to 20 minutes to do this drawing. So when you're getting ready to draw, you can plan on that kind of a time frame. It's probably going to take you to do this and do it well, and I was kind of hurrying along too. But to do it and do it well, it's probably going to take you, the class period to do it. If you would happen to get done early, you can feel free to just continue adding details to your building and coloring it, shading it, that sort of stuff. Or if you'd rather like to try to make your own building just from your imagination after you've done a real building, then that's fine too. So you notice that what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the front shapes of the house first. Like I kind of start with that main front face shape, and I do that just because it's easier for me. So I kind of take the same strategy as like when we were doing the block letters, where I do the front face first. You'll notice that I am using a straight edge for the entire thing. Like, even though we have graph paper, I'm just not that good at drawing on the lines, I guess. So So I still like to use a straight edge when I do it, just because then you get those nice, crisp, straight lines, and you can see it looks super clean. Now, again, because of the nature of isometric graph paper and the size that we're using, you're not going to be able to make this perfect. So, you know, when you're guessing about how big to make stuff, just eyeball it. I was kind of, I kind of picked like that top left corner. I was thinking, oh, that's probably about 4 blocks tall, and then I just drew a rectangle to make the shape come up, and I just guessed as far as like how wide it was. But again, it's not going to be perfect. The point of this is not to make it perfect. It's to just practice doing an isometric drawing of a real thing. And so you can see I'm just basing off the drawing. I'm just looking at it. I'm not taking any measurements from the drawing or anything like that. I'm just thinking, okay, this looks about right, this looks about right, this looks about right. Just make sure that you're using your isometric paper. And if you do that, it's going to be difficult for you to like mess it up beyond repair, or to get something that doesn't look like at least halfway close if you've picked an angular building and you're using your isometric paper correctly. So I'm getting to the point here where I have about my basic shape done, and now you can see I'm just freehanding in like the windows, because the way these windows are is they're not gonna work on isometric paper, right? Because they're just the isometric paper isn't detailed enough. So for me, I just decided I'd go in and freehand them, and I would encourage you to do the same with things like windows and doors. Now you might still want to use like a straight edge and stuff to make sure that you get it halfway correct, but I decided just to freehand it. And then I added a little sidewalk down there at the bottom, and then I decided to go ahead and shade it. And I am still using the method where one side's dark, one side's light, and then one side is kind of a medium. However, mine's weird because I have those angled sides, and I decided to shade those medium as well, but I shaded them like slightly differently to set them apart. But I do really think that you should shade it or color it in some fashion, because otherwise it just doesn't pop as much or look as realistic. And there we go. All done.